Hi, so today I will be going over academic language in the context of history and social science. So first, what is academic language? Academic language is oral and written language used for academic purposes, and it's important to incorporate into the classroom because it helps students to develop and express their understanding of the content of whatever they're learning. So in the context of history and social science, there are 4 language demands to promote academic language development. There's language function, vocabulary and symbols, discourse, and syntax. And we'll be going over each of these language demands in detail in the later on slides. It is important to note, however, that not all learning tasks will focus on both discourse and syntax. So for the purpose of the EdTPA, we are only required to include discourse or syntax, just one or the other. We don't have to do both. Okay, so let's first talk about language function. And language function is how a language is being used to complete a particular task or an objective. So often this is the action verbs in the learning objectives if we look at our lesson plan template, like I have an example over here. So an example could be like compare, explain, or describe. And it's important to note that language function is not the same thing as a cognitive function. So I'm going to use this lesson plan as an example. In my instructional learning objective for this particular lesson, I have 3 objectives. Students will be able to explain the changing attitude of Woodrow Wilson on U.S. entry into World War I. Students will be able to analyze primary documents to gain an understanding of the meaning of the text, and students will be able to justify their claim with supporting textual evidence. So there are 3 objectives here. However, for my language function, I only chose analyze because students aren't necessarily the task is not set up where the students are using language to explain or to justify. So I chose analyze as my primary language function in which language is being used to complete this objective of analyzing primary documents to gain an understanding of the text. Okay. Moving on to vocabulary. So simply put, vocabulary are words, phrases, and symbols in any given discipline. So in the context of history and social science, there are 3 different types of vocabulary. First, there's the subject-specific vocab, which are words that have a different meaning than when used in everyday life or in another discipline. So an example could be a ruler, because ruler in social science is going to mean something entirely different than a ruler in math or even in everyday life. Other examples could be key, charter, state, etc. Second, there's discipline-specific vocab, which are words that are only used within the discipline of history and social science. So discipline-specific vocabulary is only used in social science or history subjects. An example would be constitution, republic, or colony. And finally, there's general academic vocabulary, which is exactly how it sounds. It's words that are used across multiple and all disciplines. So an example for general academic vocabulary would be something like compare, explain, describe, or analyze. Okay, moving on to discourse. So discourse is the structure of oral or written language in history and social science. An example of a oral discourse could be something like a pair share, because pair share is the structure in which oral language is being utilized in that task. So pair share is the structure of the oral language that the students are using. Other examples would be like a class debate or a small group discussion. And then examples of written discourse would be something like filling out a graphic organizer, because the graphic organizer asks for a specific structure of written language. It could be something like analyzing a political cartoon or writing an argumentative essay. Finally, there is syntax. So syntax is the rule for organizing words or symbols in order to convey meaning through phrases, sentences, or visual representations. So an example of syntax is something as simple as composing sentences, because there are specific rules that go into composing sentences and proper sentences, sentence structures. Other examples of syntax could be using longitude and latitude to determine a location, or using in-text citations or footnotes to cite a specific source, because there are rules for specific formatting of citing a specific source and giving credit to the author. So that's it. Thank you.